Do you feel safe going out alone on Halloween? Because this video is going to remind you that not all monsters wear masks. What's up, Rad Family? For the second episode of this year's Halloween Fest, I'm bringing you 13 real and terrifying scary events that have happened on Halloween. When you think of Halloween, what's something you envision? Maybe candy or scary mythical creatures? Even the scariest mythical creature you could possibly imagine before won't seem so bad after watching this. Hands down, this is the creepiest, most haunting video I've ever created, and I don't think I'll ever look at trick-or-treating the same again. So let's get to it.
Number 13, the Greenwich murder on Halloween. Martha Moxley attended a Halloween house party on October 30th, 1975, with the intention of having a fun evening out. But the night turned tragic when she was brutally murdered mere feet from partygoers. Reports from friends in attendance claim to have last saw Moxley leaving the house towards the backyard at approximately 9:30 with Thomas Skakel, whom she was seen hanging around and talking to throughout the night. She would not be seen alive again. A few hours later, on the morning of Halloween, her lifeless body was found in the same area she was last seen the night before. The sight was gruesome as she had been savagely beaten with such force from a golf club. The broken pieces of the 6-iron murder weapon were found at the scene. An autopsy report stated she was then stabbed with the jagged ends. Of course, suspicion immediately turned to Thomas Skakel as he was last seen with her in that exact area. But suspicion grew even more when the murder weapon was traced back to the Skakel household. Though police suspected his involvement, he nor anyone else would be charged with the murder, a move that left many eyebrows raised. Rumors arose that the wealthy family's status had something to do with the decision, as they had ties with the Kennedys, and the grandfather founded a coal company, which was one of the largest privately owned corporations in the country at the time. In a shocking turn of events, nearly 3 decades later, a break in the case led to Thomas's brother Michael Skakel being charged with her death. Inconsistencies in the brothers' alibis, a private investigation that showed many flaws in the police investigation, and 2 former classmates testified they heard Michael say he would get away with the murder because he was a Kennedy, eventually led investigations to Moxley's true killer. Though found guilty in 2002, as of 2013, he is out on bail as he awaits a possible retrial after claiming his original attorney failed to represent him effectively.
Even if the rumors aren't true, it's certainly terrifying to think someone could almost get away with murder because of their status.
Number 12, trick-or-treat murder. A terrifying case known as the trick-or-treat murder took place on October 30th, 1982, when older married couple Marvin and Ethel Brandlin were handing out candy to trick-or-treaters. It was a typical Halloween night until a man wearing a pillowcase over his head rang their doorbell. Answering the door to give candy, they were met with a man immediately saying, "Trick or treat, give me your money or I'll shoot." As their granddaughter had just left a few moments before, thinking it was a prank, Ethel disregarded the threat and turned to get candy. But the man quickly entered the home and, drawing out a gun, demanded the couple take him to their safe in the basement, something very few people knew even existed. Still believing it was a prankster, Marvin reached for the gun to put an end to the joke, but instead of playful laughs, he was met with a gunshot to the throat. As the robbery didn't go as planned, the killer threw off the mask and fled the scene, leaving behind evidence. Tragically, Marvin died at the hospital from his wounds. Even scarier, the killer got away with the murder. Since very few people had knowledge about the safe and Ethel saw the face of the killer, the family knew who the killer was. But after DNA testing, the pillowcase didn't have enough material to form a profile match, and he was able to walk free as police didn't have enough evidence to charge him.
It's incredibly sad and scary to think that even staying indoors doesn't make you safe on Halloween.
Number 11, severed head Halloween prank. A few days shy of Halloween 2014, a 35-year-old Derek Ward brutally murdered his mother, Patricia Ward, inside the apartment they shared in New York. Being mentally ill and without his medicine for 4 days, it is believed something set him into a fit of rage and he began to violently beat his mother, breaking her ribs. Eventually reaching for a knife, he stabbed her repeatedly until she died. To make the scene even more sickening, he then used the knife to separate her head from her body. At around 8 p.m., soaked in blood, he carried her body and her head out of the apartment and down the street for all to see. Since Halloween was just a few days away and the scene was so incredibly grisly, no one thought it was real. One neighbor claimed it looked like a staged hoax as he proceeded to kick the head down the street. It wasn't until neighbors tried to pick up what they thought was a mannequin did they make the startling and nightmarish discovery that the headless body was in fact real. Derek then killed himself by jumping in front of a train before he could be apprehended by police. To make the story even more tragic, if that's possible, his mother had made an appointment to get him back on his meds in just a couple of days. Something reports believe could have prevented this terrible crime. Number 10. Evil babysitter. On the morning of November 1st, 1977, the parents of Nema Carter awoke to every parent's worst nightmare. Their 19-month-old daughter was missing. Having placed her in the crib on the night of Halloween, the parents chose not to answer her cries as they were trying to get her to self-soothe and fall asleep on her own. A decision they have said haunts them with a plethora of what-ifs. When police arrived to investigate the kidnapping, they noticed no sign of forced entry, meaning the kidnapper had been lurking inside their house, possibly in Nema's closet, before they went to bed on Halloween. It wouldn't be until a month later that her body would be discovered. A group of children were playing in a nearby abandoned house when they opened the fridge to find her. The kidnapper had placed Nema in the refrigerator and left her to suffer and suffocate. The group of children didn't report their discovery. It wasn't until a soldier entered the home and found the gruesome scene before Thanksgiving. Horrifyingly, because of lack of evidence, the murderer was never charged with Nema's death. But that doesn't mean they weren't caught. Just the year before, twin girls were lured out of their house and taken to an abandoned building where they were stuffed into a refrigerator just like Nema. But unlike Nema's case, one of the twin girls survived after a group of children heard her cries and opened the fridge door, which she was then able to identify her abductor, their teenage babysitter, Jacqueline Robideau, the same babysitter of Nema. Though neighbors had claimed to see Robideau drag the twin girls down the street, no one reported it to police before the murder. Unfortunately, the young girl's testimony was deemed untrustworthy because of her age, and lack of evidence allowed for the murderous babysitter to walk free and strike again. Fortunately, justice did catch up, and she was later convicted for the twins' death, but not Nema's.
It's especially frightening to think a monster really could be hiding in your closet.
Number 9. The East Coast Rapist. Though he was found to have committed multiple rapes in different states between 1997 and 2009, it was Aaron Thomas's last rape that led to his eventual capture. For 12 years, he stalked his unsuspecting victims throughout their daily routines until he found an opening to attack at night. On Halloween in 2009, his target was 3 teenage girls out trick-or-treating together in Virginia. Pointing a lighter that looked like a gun, he ordered the girls into a wooded area behind a CVS pharmacy. Forcing the girls to lie face down in a ravine, he began to rape one of the teens. Too scared of being shot to run away, one of the girls did retrieve her phone from her pocket and was able to secretly text her mother to call for help. Taking the chance, she then decided to dial 911 herself, a move which resulted in police arriving quickly, scaring off Thomas into the woods. After a few minutes, he was able to exit the woods to return to his car in the parking lot, walking past several cops in the process. Though he drove away, he was eventually caught, where he was linked to many other rapes and received multiple life sentences for his disgusting crimes.
While walking in pairs at night is a wonderful safety strategy that everyone should use, this story does go to show that you're not always guaranteed safety with more numbers.
Number 8. Possible cult killing. In the early morning of Halloween 1981, Ronald Sisman and Elizabeth Platzman were violently beaten and shot in their heads inside their Greenwich Village apartment. Their apartment was then ransacked, making it at first appear like a robbery gone wrong. As police investigated, they uncovered Sisman's involvement in the drug world, so a possible motive and subsequent theory was developed. But this double homicide proved to not be as easy to solve or explain. An informant came forward with a crazy accusation that was almost too wild to believe until further testimony added support. The informant claimed a fellow inmate predicted a couple's murder near Greenwich Village on Halloween, which at the time was still a few weeks away. The inmate turned out to be none other than the son of Sam's serial killer, David Berkowitz. People had theorized Berkowitz didn't work alone during his killings, and that he was actually part of a satanic cult, a theory Berkowitz seemingly confirmed when questioned about the informant's claims. He told of his cult's plan, saying they staged the robbery so that they could remove evidence. To further validate the cult's involvement, he was able to describe the inside of their apartment. Unfortunately, no physical evidence was found to support the claims or lead to an arrest, so the murderers walked free.
If this is true, that means there is a murderous satanic cult out there that was never caught.
Number 7. The murder of Taylor Van Diest. In Armstrong, British Columbia, on Halloween night in 2001, 18-year-old Taylor Van Diest was en route to meet a group of friends to go trick-or-treating with. On her way there, she noticed someone had been walking behind her for quite some distance. Feeling as if she was being followed, she texted one of her friends about her feeling. It would be the last time her friend would hear from her. Shortly after sending the eerie text message, she was attacked, proving her suspicion of dangers correct. When she didn't show up and no one could get a hold of her, the police were called. Hours later, they found her badly beaten body beside the train tracks. While alive when found, she sadly died at the hospital. Police didn't take long to find her killer, Matthew Forrester, who confessed to following her with the intent of rape. But during the struggle, he had pushed her by the neck and either hit her over the head with his flashlight or slammed her head against a metal pipe. Leaving her on the ground, he fled to Ontario. Police located him and he was sentenced to life in prison for her murder. When it was revealed that his father had helped him evade police, he was also sentenced to serve jail time.
After hearing this case, it goes to show how important it is to listen to your gut feeling.
Number 6. The mysterious unsolved dorm murder. This New York murder case is shrouded in mystery and questions, making the case incredibly complex and left unsolved. Sitting outside his dorm reading a book in the hallway on Halloween night of 1986 was the last time anyone would see Chaim Weiss alive. On the morning of November 1st, his lifeless body was found on the floor in his dorm room. While laying in bed, he received a hit to his skull with such a force that it severed his spinal column. What makes this case even more perplexing is what happened after he was murdered. Whomever killed the young boy had to have known he was one of only 2 who didn't have a roommate, must have attended or worked for the school to have access to the dorms, and had been familiar with the customs of Orthodox Judaism, because after he was killed, his body was moved to the floor, the window opened, and after the crime scene had been sealed off, returned to light a second candle. To make matters even more challenging for the detectives, no one would come forward to offer information or answer investigators' questions about the night or the appearance of a second candle. One investigator noted he felt the students were afraid to speak with them. Over 40 people, including students, teachers, and rabbis, were investigated for the murder, but ultimately the case went cold. Another thing to note is that his murder took place on the Sabbath, so the dorm would have been quieter than usual as televisions and radios weren't allowed to be turned on, and yet no one heard or saw anything suspicious.
unless someone had and they were just too afraid to come forward.
Number 5, the Halloween killer. On Halloween in 1973, 9-year-old Lisa Ann French set out to go trick-or-treating around 6 p.m. and she would never be seen alive again. Her neighbor Gerald Turner had somehow lured her into his bedroom where he assaulted and strangled her. An hour later, at 7 p.m., his girlfriend Arlene Penn had returned home from work with the intention of picking up Turner to go to her mother's, but he said he didn't feel well and for her to go without him. She left shortly after, only to remember her mother wouldn't be home for another hour, so she returned to wait with Turner on the couch in the living room. She then went to her mother's for several hours, returning once again at 11 p.m. She noted Turner was still awake and that their comforter was in the laundry room before unknowingly going to sleep on the same bed where Lisa was murdered a few hours before. When Lisa didn't return home that night, the police were called and a search took place. Eventually, suspicion turned to Turner and he confessed to the murder and said he put her body in plastic garbage bags and left them on a country road by a farm. He was sentenced to only 39 years for her killing. This murder had a widespread impact.
Cities all over America began limiting trick-or-treating hours to daylight, a practice that is still in force today.
Number 4, mistaken victim for a fence decoration. Around Halloween of last year, a 31-year-old woman was brutally murdered in a small town of Ohio. Her body was left draped on a fence, her sleeve appearing to have gotten caught, and her body was said to have been bruised and bloodied. It wasn't until the next morning did neighbors notice what they thought was a new gory Halloween decoration. Her body was left exposed to those passerby for a few hours, until a construction crew went near the supposed decoration and made the grisly discovery that the body was actually real. The police identified the woman as local resident Rebecca Cade, and after investigating, determined she had been beaten to death by a nearby blood-soaked rock by Donnie Kochener Jr., who confessed to the crime and is awaiting trial. They suspect she had gotten caught on the fence as she was trying to escape from her murderer, and that's where he delivered the fatal blows to her skull. Even more chilling, she is one of 7 women that had disappeared or were found dead in a small area with a population of just 21,000, leading many to speculate a possible serial killer. But Donnie Kochener has only admitted guilt to this one killing, though a motive for it hasn't been released.
This is one of several ill-timed tragic deaths that occurred around Halloween in this video, but no doubt this was one of the most gruesome.
Number 3, the hanging woman prop. In late October, the neighborhood of Frederica, Delaware noticed a morbid scene they chalked up to festive Halloween decorations. On a busy street, a presumed fake body appeared to be hanging from a tree over a road. It stood out, but as it was the season of skeletons and monsters, an immediate response to the scene didn't happen. Of course, neighbors did call police to report the grotesque decoration around breakfast time, and when they arrived, they realized the decoration was actually a 42-year-old woman. It was determined she had committed suicide the night before, left hanging for over 12 hours, where many residents passed by and saw her corpse.
When a whole month is spent celebrating skeletons and zombies, it's very easy to imagine how this could happen.
Number 2, the mistaken corpse for a decoration. Halloween had passed a couple days before, but leftover decorations still lingered throughout a neighborhood in Denver, Colorado. So when a mailman delivered envelopes to a porch mailbox with a body slouched on the steps next to it, he assumed it to be a fake decoration and continued on his route like normal. It wasn't until a few hours later, when the family of the residents returned home, did they discover their loved one's body on the porch. It was determined that the body belonged to Dale Porsche, and when he returned home from work that morning, he had collapsed on the steps. The family claimed his body was still warm when they found him, and after they put together the time frame and found the delivered mail, they were outraged that the mailman seemingly ignored him when his intervention, they alleged, could have saved his life. But when news reached the mailman, he was in utter shock to learn that the body was not a Halloween mannequin and insisted if he had known, he would have called for help, something his past record of helping his community supported.
A case of tragedy and truly unfortunate timing.
Number 1. Murder inspired by Halloween. On October 3rd, 2012, 17-year-old Jack Evans brutally murdered his mother and sister in cold blood in their home. His reasoning? In his confession letter, he wrote of how he repeatedly watched the 2007 remake of Halloween, an iconic horror movie franchise, the week of the murder, and was focused on how easily the main villain murdered people. Though a fictional movie, and obviously he suffered from severe mental illness, Evans claimed to relate to the lack of an emotional response to murder and wanted to find out how he would actually react. Using a gun, he went to his sister Mallory's room and called for her to come out. When she did and saw the gun, she assumed he was playing a prank, but he wasn't, and he pulled the trigger. He then went downstairs to his mother, Jamie, and shot her to death as well. Claiming to not want people to assume he murdered his family because of the movie, he burned the DVD so it wouldn't be found at the home. Makes you wonder why he then mentioned it in his confession letter.
I know I'm definitely going to be keeping my doors locked after the sun goes down. Be safe out there, and please remember, if you're going trick-or-treating or attending a party, to go with a friend. And don't let this video make you too afraid to have fun on Halloween. Go out, have fun with your friends, or stay in and watch a movie and have fun with yourself, but please take precautions. If you're interested in seeing more Halloween Fest videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you can be notified when the next real creepy topic is live. And don't forget to catch up on last week's video, which is down below. Until next time, keep up the radness, and I'll see you real soon. Bye!